Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, a sports ethos presentation brought to you by our great partners at FanDuel. My name is Aaron Bruski, and today I'm going to be going solo. Shout out to the great Steve, Dr. A. Alexander, who will be back with us tomorrow. On this episode, we'll break down Tuesday's NBA Cup quarterfinals game, take a peek at players you might want to add in advance for tomorrow, and end the episode with a Who Should I Stash segment. And I'm laughing. That's not even the right show notes, is it? Is that even correct, Andre? That's not even correct. Is it correct? I don't even know. Nope, it is correct. It is correct. We'll start the show with a check-in on my B150 players of the night. Don't mind me, guys. I did 4 hours of radio yesterday or whatever audio. It is well in my head, I think. We'll hit the top ads up. We'll do the drop zone. We'll do all the things. We'll go through some news here real quick. And thank you guys very much for your patience with my inability to read. Manuel quickly downgraded to questionable today, so we'll keep an eye on that. He's been playing pretty well after a slow start to the season. We got Mitch Johnson with the news on Victor Wembanyama. His calf injury makes him uncertain for Wednesday. He traveled with the team. Mitch Johnson, I want to say he had a Cheshire smile, but I don't think I would qualify it as a Cheshire smile when asked about Victor's availability for this game on Wednesday. I went back and forth a million times because I got to decide whether or not to put him in a lineup before lineup lock yesterday. I eventually went with it. So, I don't know. Victor, if he wants to play, he's gonna push one way or another. But it's all up in the air. It's like 51-49. I'll root for him to play, and we're all rooting to see that in some NBA Cup action. Hello, new listeners. If you're new to Sports Ethos, head to sportsethos.com. Check out our memberships, B150 projections, powering all these tools, articles that go above and beyond what you guys will find on social media or YouTube. Let's get to my 3 Bruski 150 players of the night. Let's start with Jay Huff, 8 and 7, 2 steals, 4 blocks, no threes. So that's a little bit of a disappointment, but he got to beat up on the Kings a little bit. Interestingly enough, there's a report from Shams Charania that the Pacers are active in trade talks to find a center of the future. So, what are we doing with Jay Huff in light of this news? It feels like Jay Huff just got really, 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 really into the spotlight lately. He is a top 60 kind of a play over the last 2 to 3 weeks. He's been showing you that with each additional minute that you give him, he gives you about a round of fantasy value, a little bit of exaggeration there. And what do we do with this? I mean, of course, Jay Huff isn't the center of the future for the Indiana Pacers. He's 73 years old, but he is doing well for them. And I don't know if they're going to be able to pull off a deal to get a center of the future. I mean, maybe they're hurting from losing Miles Turner, but I don't know how much we want to plan for this in fantasy leagues. I would be more concerned about Jay Huff's knee. I would be more concerned about Jay Huff just going through a cold streak. I do think that he is locked down about 25 minutes per game for the Indiana Pacers going forward. I think we're hopefully past the time where Rick Carlisle just throws out a 20, 30 minutes of Huff and Isaiah Jackson and then, grab bag after that at the center position. I think we're past that. If you want to call Huff a late round player because we're concerned about all of the various things, I would be fine with that. But when I release my B150 rankings here during the NBA Cup to kind of reset what we believe to be the future of fantasy leagues here for the rest of the season, I won't be having them in the late rounds. I'll be having them in the middle rounds. And that's because it's in the middle now. It's much more nuanced than that, but he has early round potential. So I'm kind of curious and maybe even believing that we're going to see possibly top 50 Jay Huff the rest of the way. So what I will do is I will adjust for the injury risk and some of the risk of some of these reports, but it's early. And Shams, he needed something to say that was actionable. All of his other stuff that he mentioned, I don't think was all that actionable out there. So we will keep an eye on news, but I'm going to have Jay Huff as kind of a mid-round guy. One of the other B150 players of the night, Derek Queen. Let's switch gears. Let's talk Derek Queen. 33, 10, and 10, 4 blocks. Trey Murphy also went off for 32 points and a lot of goodies in that game. And so we got to see Derek Queen basically do the thing. We've seen a couple of these. This one was his biggest blowout line. And in the last week and a half, he's been a late round guy. And a lot of talk about him in waiver wire columns, even though I didn't think he should have been dropped anywhere. A lot of questions about how good is Derek Queen in terms of fantasy. I've been putting him at the top of the waiver wire column so you guys would know to just go run and grab him whenever he gets dropped. So what's he going to do for the rest of the season? I think the fact that these lines are happening moves him closer to the top 50 projection range than the top 100 projection range. If he was just sort of putzing along with late round value for a couple of additional weeks here, let's say he did it for 3 weeks, then I might be thinking, all right, the outlook on this guy in 9 cat leagues where his turnovers hurt would be in the top 100 range. When he's doing stuff like this, I think they just turn the page faster. I think there are going to be plenty of speed bumps for Derek Queen. He's going to get benched, several times for not running back on defense. He's going to get benched several times for teams that are just absolutely annihilating him. And the more he does this, by the way, the more he gets onto the scouting report for 33 10s and 10s, the more teams are going to say, we don't want that guy on the floor. Well, let's just go play him off the floor real quick. Let's pick and roll him to death. And so you'll see some speed bumps. And anytime there's a speed bump, that's your opportunity to buy low in whatever capacity. However big the dip is going to be how much profit you can make buying low until we get to the point where nobody cares and nobody thinks that Derek Queen is going to be a problem the rest of the way. The Pelicans are all in on Derek Queen, and so are we. From a fantasy standpoint, the whole outlook for Derek Queen and any other center who can invert the floor offensively and also can't play defense, that discussion we'll all get it figured out here in the next 5 years. All right, let's see who else was the third B150 player of the night. Mark Williams, 22, 7, and 3, 2 steals. And of course, I'm going to sneak in a little Colin Gillespie. 19 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, 1 block, 3 trays. Big plays down the stretch. It was the Colin Gillespie show late. Royce O'Neal, who had practically nothing in the game before, 11 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 3 threes. Hence why I begged you guys not to drop and also add if you saw Royce O'Neal on your waiver wire. So the Suns are doing the thing. I didn't have the stones to call them on the money line last night. The +8 was great. And I do like them in cup action against the Thunder. Yeah, to cover in that game. So we'll see what the odds look like if they're even available for that game. I'm going to guess they are. Let's get to our top 2 ads from last night. One last thing before I forget. Mark Williams has played in 20 of the 24 games that the Suns have played. I believe it's 24. So shout out to Mark Williams for his availability. And unfortunately, the Lakers didn't think he could play. All right, let's get to the top 2 ads from last night. Herbert Jones, welcome to the season. 17 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, 4 steals, 1 block, 25 minutes. I'll tell you, I was doubting myself. I was saying I was kind of giving Herbert Jones every piece of grace that I could give him. Like, okay, well, maybe he's injured and maybe he just needs to get healthy. And then maybe we'll see if Herbert Jones is still the Herbert Jones that we know, and he comes back in and he completely looks like old Herbert Jones. He had the snap. He was just fast, all the different things. Everybody in the local beat writing crew noticed it. So I was very, very close to giving up on Herbert Jones in terms of what is he? Well, right now he's an injury prone prior version of himself. He hasn't had a major degradation or anything like that. So what can Herbert Jones do for you? Well, when he's healthy and good, he could be a top 60 9-cat player, and in 8-cat leagues, he could be a top 80 to 90 player. And if he plays a lot, those numbers can get even better than that. So Herbert Jones, especially in roto formats where you guys need steals and they could be very, very valuable for your squad. That's a big, I'll say, run, don't walk, kind of in that ballpark kind of a situation if you're in one of those formats. If you're not in one of those formats, if you're in a head-to-head format and some of the steals value is a little bit, it's unnecessary for you. You're winning steals every week one way or another. I think you could back off and you could just consider him a kind of garden variety ad. with those valuations that I mentioned as the apex of what he can do. And a late round value is a pretty good likelihood with Herbert Jones. I would say in a 9-cat league, a top 100 likelihood seems to be pretty, let's say 66% chance. And in an 8-cat league, I would say you got probably a good coin flip chance that he would be a late round value as well. Let's get out of that and let's get into Dylan Harper's big night. 22 points, 3 boards, 6 assists, 1 3. The San Antonio box score was well distributed. De'Aaron Fox sort of gave his stats to everybody else. Julian Champagny had 17 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 5 3-pointers. And then Harrison Barnes went for 24 points and 4 threes of his own. So I think, though, Dylan Harper's stuff is really, really interesting because he is really, really, really good. I mean, we've not been able to see that because he's been injured. At least the public at large hasn't really been able to see Dylan Harper have good numbers. I've been asking you guys to add him as a late round value, but also capping him, as a late round value, knowing that you've got Wemby coming back. You got De'Aaron Fox doing his thing. You got a team of great basketball players all over the place. Stephon Castle returned. And sometimes you got to zig when everything seems to zag. Dylan Harper, I think, rising out of maybe late round value and into top 100 land this season. It seems to be a little bit more likely with how quickly he's showing how good he is, and the learning curve there. If this was October or early November, we would have been going through this then. And right now we're just seeing him kind of blast through it. So I like Dylan Harper as a must roster player in 12-team formats, even though the upside still, no matter what, is going to be a little bit low. There's going to be down nights that, make him more of a top 100 to 125 guy, but a great game and a good restart for Dylan Harper here. The last honorable mention that I would mention from last night's action is Maxime Reynaud. 13 points, 8 boards, 3 assists. Now, he had no threes, no defensive stats, and the Kings are just weird. I mean, you got Russell Westbrook. He's probably on rosters. He needs to be on rosters. 24 points, 12 boards, 14 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 2 threes. What did I say? Life or death taxes in Russell Westbrook. I could see Russell Westbrook having triple doubles 5 years from now for the Sacramento Kings, and it would completely make sense in my brain that this is a thing that could happen. As this team figures out what they do and don't want to do, and they want to add Jonathan Kuminga or whatever dumb thing they want to do next, Russell Westbrook will navigate that. And then in the meantime, for somebody like Maxime Reynaud, I think Russell Westbrook is kind of like neutral, to Reynaud's production, his play, his existence on the court. If anything, he'll probably involve the rookie a little bit more than his teammates will. We're looking at the rest of the roster. I think the rest of the roster, if I remember, hit something like 50 or 55 or maybe even 60% of their shots. So I say rest of the roster, I mean like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, all the big, there was a Precious Achiuwa had decent volume in the box score. So all these guys that don't pass had a lot of volume in this game. And I bet, rewatching that game, it would look really, really bad. And they lost in Indiana, and it probably, it's not something you would want to duplicate over and over again. So until DeMar DeRozan and maybe one other player go, we'll talk about this a little bit later, I think in the next show, what to do with some of these other Sacramento Kings. Until those guys go, it's going to be a little bit just bad and muted. And the Maxime Reynauds of the world will have a good but not great line. And I think what Reynaud will look like when you see this team balance out a little bit is just a few more points, a little bit more positive action, a little bit more threes, a little bit more steals and blocks to round this line out. If you got a 13, 8, and 3 from Maxime Reynaud in game 1, and I do consider him to be a late round player going forward this season at minimum, you got to feel okay, but you'd like to see the goodies in the cash counting stats to make this situation where you're not counting on big nights offensively. If he's not going to be a cash counting stat guy, 13, 8, and 3 looks pretty hollow pretty quick. So we're still on the Maxime Reynaud train, probably for the foreseeable future. So good stuff there. All right, guys, if you want to go check and see if these players are available in your on your waiver wire in your leagues, do that. But also take a moment to hit the thumbs up on this video. Let's get to the drop zone, where we have a few players to talk about here despite the slow night. Stephon Castle was good, 18-5 and 5-1-3. I don't think we're dropping Stephon Castle, but Devin Vassell, Castle and Vassell, Devin Vassell, 5 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, 1-3. This is unfortunate territory for Vassell. I think he's going to be sort of the loser in this equation. I think his stat set works fine to have late round value going forward, but I think these dips are going to push him right into the 150 range. And I just don't think that's going to work out with low upside and so many players there. So Devin Vassell, I am fine with you guys dropping. I'm not worried about a Vassell outbreak. And the name value is pretty high there. You might want to consider trading before dropping. And that's unfortunate when you have so many good players on one basketball team. The next up in our drop zone, we have Keon Ellis with practically no stats and Malik Monk with practically no stats. And as I was mentioning earlier with the Sacramento Kings, this is all about a trade. And if they bring back Jonathan Kuminga, all bets are off. That's going to be awful for them as a team. It's going to be awful for the teammates. He doesn't pass. He doesn't really bend the defense. He's very athletic. He could do a few things very well, but the whole operation will go south as if it couldn't go worse for the Sacramento Kings. And I do believe they are very interested in Jonathan Kuminga. They're not good at hiding their true intentions in Sacramento. So the Keon Ellis and Malik Monk thing, if they can dodge a Jonathan Kuminga trade and they could get rid of DeMar DeRozan, and then whatever happens with Domantas Sabonis, I don't think he can be traded, but if they can find a trade partner for him, or maybe he just gets too hurt this season. He's been banged up, playing through a lot of stuff the last few years. And why push through it if you're Domantas Sabonis? I know he wants to play, and I think teammates want him to play. If he is on the court, I'm good with it in terms of projecting success for the Malik Monks and the Keon Ellises of the world. But quite literally, you got to get DeMar DeRozan out of there. He is absolutely killing the Sacramento Kings on a nightly basis. You can't have both of the old Chicago Bulls on your team killing you on a nightly basis. You can only have one of the old Chicago Bulls on your team killing you on a nightly basis. So Keon DeMar DeRozan, who's a good guy, but he's absolutely holding this team back. And then Keon and Malik, if that happens, I think if Keon's still doing 3-1 and 0-1, you will have nobody racing with you to the waiver wire to get that. So you could wait on that. With the Malik Monk one, you'll have to move a little bit quicker because he's going to have 22.4 rebound, 4 assist explosions from here until whenever. It's just these 0, 4, and 1s that you can't predict in 9 minutes. This is brutal, absolutely brutal stuff. Brutal decision-making for Doug Christie, brutal decision-making for the Sacramento Kings. And we move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves. You got a stinker out of Naz Reid. You got a stinker out of Dante DiVincenzo. You got a stinker out of Jaden McDaniels. No, we're not dropping any of these guys. We just want to look at Dante DiVincenzo with disappointing glares. Like, come on, man. And I really don't even know if it's his fault. I think that Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are going to kind of battle for the heart and soul of this team in big moments. And Anthony Edwards had an illness, and then he's deciding to play in this last game. You know, a little bit of imbalance there. And by the way, the Phoenix Suns are really freaking good. You know, like you get a Colin Gillespie that you got to play against. I mean, what do you do with that? And of course, I'm laying it on a little thick here, but seriously, Colin Gillespie is that good. Like, he's not an injury replacement. He's not, you know, the waiver wire pickup of the year. He's the B150 possible player of the year. And we move on to Grayson Allen, who had 12 points, 3 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 1 3. It was a very, very rough shooting line for him, but I'm good with that. I think the activity shows that they have a lot of faith in Grayson Allen, and so do I. I don't think he's anywhere near a drop, but he had a couple kind of slow, rough games to get back on the court after dealing with his quad injury. And then Jeremiah Fears went for 5 points, not much more after that. And I'm not like down on Jeremiah Fears. This is what happens to rookies. And when you're going to have a Derek Queen who's going to go off like that, somebody else is going to suffer. Jeremiah Fears is more of a deep league guy for me. I'm not really expecting him to be anything more than a late round value throughout February, March, and April. It's a stat set thing. Also, you got a lot of players in New Orleans that are in his way. Let's get to buy or pass. Buy or pass. We're working with buy or pass today. buy or pass is cool. We are looking at players who have suffered a little bit over the last 2 weeks. We'll decide if we're going to buy or pass. So we're going to start with Donovan Clingan, who has a 191 value per game over the last 2 weeks in 8 cat leagues. He's only played 3 games. I will say, as he's been dealing with left leg injuries, I think he is probably, concerning me. He's concerning me. I'll be honest. He's concerning me just because a man his size who's had injury issues in the past. I'm not sure if he's just going to keep going at the rate he was going at the beginning of the season, where he was really just awesome, top 60, top 70. No issues. The only issue we had with Donovan Clingan early in the season was that every now and then he wouldn't go off in the box score, and it would be his teammates. Now we've got the injury and we've got the low production. So what I would do with Donovan Clingan is just simply downgrade him a little bit. I would consider him more of a top 80 to 90 play for the rest of the season. We'll keep a close eye on that injury. So if anybody's treating him as if he's less than that, like he's a late round guy, or heaven forbid they consider dropping him, I don't think that would happen. I would make that my valuation if I was going to try to pluck him in any kind of deal. And I don't think the other team is going to go for it. I think they're still waiting for Donovan Clingan to be a mid-round guy as well. But give it a try. Maybe a 2-player, 2-for-2 deal where you can kick some dust up in the air and make things a little confusing. Donovan Clingan, I will buy him and not pass. Let's get to the next one. Miles Bridges at number 168. I'm calling this the Danny Wolf dunk phenomena. If you get dunked on by Danny Wolf, you suck for 2 weeks in fantasy basketball. Them's the rules. Miles Bridges, though, is completely locked in for fantasy value this season, unless he has some sort of an injury that we don't know about. I don't think that's the case here. He's just going to be a top 50 guy for the foreseeable future. And they don't have anybody to replace him with in Charlotte. And they got a LaMelo Ball issue that's probably going to help Miles Bridges out, as well as LaMelo Ball tries to stay on the basketball floor and doesn't do that great of a job at that. Let's get to Shaedon Sharpe, who's number 156 over the last 6 games. Am I buying or am I passing? I'm generally passing on Shaedon Sharpe. I don't think this stat set is going to work in fantasy leagues over the long haul. And when he's having issues, whether it's an injury issue, I know he's dealing with a calf. You've got a team in Portland that asks a lot of him, and that's a good thing for his fantasy value. But once they get a little bit too thin, he starts taking on too much inefficient shot attempts, stuff like that. He's starts to fall in the ranks. I just don't see the upside here to match what people perceive his value to be, what his name value is. He scores a lot of points. Usually that's your first indicator that a player will be overvalued. So I'll just pass on the Shaedon Sharpe action. If there's a profit margin to be had, somebody else can have it. Let's get to Rudy Gobert. He's checking in at 150 value over the last 7 games. And I am just a general Rudy Gobert hater, fader. I actually generally lose on this. I've been doing this fading of Rudy Gobert for like 6-7 years now. And I think in years 1, 2, and 3, I might have lost that bet. I'm not losing the bet anymore because I don't think anybody cares. And I think Rudy Gobert is just a classic top 100 center in 9-cat formats. He's going to go out there and play. You're going to get your low end blocks. You're going to get your boards. You're going to get your field goal percentage. You're going to struggle with free throws. You've been on this ride before. And so if somebody wants to downgrade Rudy Gobert into being like a barely rosterable player and you need a center, well, absolutely, you can take advantage of this. So I don't know that I'm buying it so much as just not caring about it. Let's get to Jabari Smith. He's checking in at basically 150 value as well over the last 6 games. I know it can get bad for Jabari. I took the bet last year on Jabari, like a really, really small bet, and ended up with Jabari in a few places. So I got to watch the Jabari Smith stuff up close, and it's so bad. It's so boring. But this year's version, I think, actually has a better chance at being closer to a top 100 play. And that's a win for this guy. He's got more talent than that, sure. If he was placed in another team where he was going to get center minutes all the time and be more of a hub and be more of an activity guy, you would get maybe top 75 or maybe even top 60 Jabari Smith. Man, you could even probably get like top 50 or top 40 in the right location just because of his pure size and length alone. Right now, having to kind of play off the ball with Alperen Şengün and all the things that teams are just attacking Şengün, as much as possible every game, and Jabari Smith is off somewhere else doing other things. It's not a great setup for him defensively. But they don't have other options in Houston. The trade market's not going to loosen things up for them very much. I don't think there's anything cooking for them on the trade market. So if anybody gets hurt at all, Jabari Smith will go from being what I believe will be a top 100 player for the entire season to possibly up into the top 80 range. And that would be a massive success for Jabari Smith Jr. So if somebody wants to give you Jabari Smith for a late round guy, like a top 125 guy, there is profit margin. And I do like the fact that there is some sort of consistency that you can expect from him. It's not going to be exciting, and the dips might get down to 150. And then if he's got that scenario I was just laying out there, he would be a dip in the 125 range. And that plays in most lineups, I would think, except for very, very shallow leagues. So I'll buy this little dip here and take it for whatever it's worth. We'll go to Jaren Jackson next. This is actually very interesting stuff because he sucks right now. Like, he is bad. I don't get this. I don't get this for him. I don't get this for Memphis. I don't get this for anybody involved. Like, and I've said this on this show, is like, I hope he's either, and I don't hope he's hurt, but like, in terms of evaluating his performance, I hope he's pissed off. That's my leader in the clubhouse. I hope he's pissed off that the offense sucks, in like his mind, and that, he doesn't get the ball enough, and that, Ja Morant is probably on his way out, and maybe, Jaren Jackson's just looking at the future of Memphis basketball and saying, I don't like it, and I'm gonna pout my way through it. I suspect it's a lot of different things at once, and I don't know that he's injured. I know he's coming off a big injury this summer, but like right now, I don't think he's injured, and I don't really think that he's pissed off, to be honest. I think it's that Zach Edey, for one, is coming in right now and drinking his milkshake. I think 2 is that this offense doesn't agree with him. And I think 3, he's starting to finally pay the price for the style of his play being just inefficient for big man stats. Like, he's not a big rebounder. Well, okay, Zach Edey's going to come and steal all your rebounds and you're going to be struggling. Okay. I don't have a power game, offensively. I can't get down on the block and do anything. All I can do is little, Euro step this and that, and I can shoot, and I can take some, kind of wild wide angle drives to the basket. You learn this stuff early in your career, and you make that who you are. And then all of a sudden you don't have the handle, and you don't have the shot, you don't have the quickness to do all that stuff anymore. And now you're just kind of a guy standing around getting light box scores, a top 125 value over the last 6 games, basically more or less where he's been producing all season. There's a player in there. There's a good player in there somewhere. I just don't know if it's going to happen for this season. I've taken a buy low off of Jaren Jackson already. There's another shoe to drop here, and I don't know what that shoe is going to be. It's one of the aforementioned issues or multiples, and I don't think you're buying into that. You could buy into it on this one premise, and one premise only, is it can't get any worse than this. And that statement is probably true. If Jaren Jackson Jr. comes back to playing top 75 basketball for the rest of the season, or heaven forbid he plays top 60 basketball, I don't think top 50 is in play for the guy this season. But if he's at 60 or 75, whoever drafted Jaren Jackson Jr. just probably wants him off their team bad enough to where they will give you Jaren Jackson for like a top 80 or 90 player begrudgingly, and then you can get the value gain from 80 to 60. That's something I'm not going to tell you guys to go do. That's just a lot of work for not a lot of potential benefit, and it might not actually pan out. Let's get to the last, what do we call these guys? Buy or pass. Brandon Miller, 110 over the last 5 games. This one's super easy for me. This is a buy. He's shooting like crap. He's shooting like 10%, it feels like, since coming back. I know it's not that number. It's actually a little bit down, but a lot of big, bad shooting lines. So a couple really bad games mixed in here for Brandon Miller, and that's fine. I mean, this dude's barely played basketball in the aggregate over the last couple years. He is more of a top 30 to 40 guy going forward. Sure, we could throw a question mark around it because we haven't really seen it, but Charlotte is so set up for fantasy value. You've got all these guys that don't need the ball, don't want the ball, and they're playing heavy minutes. And then you got LaMelo Ball, who sucks the air out of the box score when he plays.
But while that happens, these guys are more or less fine because there's nobody else that needs the ball. So you take a big, massive 20 plus 5 and 10 or whatever the hell, LaMelo gets, you take that out of the box score when he can't play and somebody else has got to get it. And it's Brandon Miller and it's Miles Bridges and it's Con Knippel. So Brandon Miller, serious buy low opportunity. I think, it's always top 75 that we're throwing out there for value. The late round stuff, nobody cares about. The early round stuff, probably somebody's not going to do. It's that top 75 player that you can toss out for Brandon Miller. And who knows, maybe you could even do it for a top 80 player. Somebody's probably pretty disappointed with their Brandon Miller draft pick. You got a lot of value gain here, folks. You got 2, 3, maybe even 4 rounds of value that you can get for Brandon Miller with a simple buy low that you can just shoot over to that guy or gal right now. And that's going to do it for the show. If you guys enjoyed this episode, the best way to keep this content coming is relatively simple. If you're listening on a pod feed, take 60 seconds and drop us a 5-star review. It helps us a ton. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the Sports Ethos channel so you never miss a new episode. Thank you, Andre. Hope all is well for you, Doc, as you're traveling. And to our content team, Mike Passador, Keston Paul, Mark Camaro, Tim Woodson, William Harris, Yoel Abuloff, John Mosales, Paul Williamson, and Anthony Cates. Great job with all the different things. Check out the cheat sheet as you get ready for your games during the week. Check out the box score breakdown at nights. Doc will be back tomorrow for Q&A with Dr. A. So we got all sorts of content for you here at Sports Ethos. So for everybody, we will be right back with a preview of tonight's slate. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, presented by FanDuel.